I think that would be good. Oh, motherfucker!
Sigi just dropped something.
I almost dropped the camera. Hello and welcome to another Laboratory Maniacs set review. I'm Sigi, with me is, as usual, Dan.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. It's been a while since we've made our last video.
Actually, no. It's been a while since we posted our last video.
Oh, that's
Technically,
true.
you and I recorded another set review before this one, but this one's going live because the last set review was for, like, I don't know, some garbage set that came out since now and Kaladesh. I don't remember, honestly. But this is an important set for everyone.
Oh, yes.
For so many people. This is the first set I'm going to go to a pre-release of in like 3 years. This is the set that has restored my faith in Magic, although my faith in Magic is actually my faith in Richard Garfield. And this is the first set that has significantly interested me in terms of power level, card design, and, well, actually, that's really just saying that it's restored my faith in Richard Garfield. Never mind. So yeah, thank you, Richard Garfield. You know how to make magic.
That he does, it seems. Yeah, also there's some interesting stuff on our end. We've got some new equipment that we need to test. This is not like the first video of Season 3 or anything. This is the Dominaria set review, where we also get to premiere our new stuff. So yeah, hooray for us, and
Oh, Cameron's listening to this. Cameron, can I poke the green screen to emphasize the green screen part of it? Or does that, like, ruin everything? He said I can. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it.
Oh my god.
I don't know how that's gonna look on this. I don't know how post-production works. But there's a green screen hanging behind me. It's really weird. I'm not used to this. It's really hot up here, too. We have these, like, big, giant light boxes. Anyways, sorry. Back to the set review.
Yeah. Back to the set review, indeed. I'd say let's just get right into it. We've gotten all of the other stuff out of the way. So here's our first card. It's white, and it's the only white card we're going to be talking about. It's Urza's Ruinous Blast, a legendary sorcery for 4 and a white. And it says, exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary.
It's pretty cool. So, for those of you who may not have been keeping up with how the new rules regarding legendary spells are going to work, legendary instants and sorceries are only castable if you control a legendary creature or planeswalker. So, while this does exile everything that's non-legendary and non-land, you do have to have a legendary creature in play to be able to cast this, which, in a format centered around the concept of a commander as a legendary creature, isn't actually going to be that difficult. This card specifically, I think, is going to have applications in Captain Sisay, because she can tutor it, which is a powerful ability, being able to tutor a very strong Wrath effect, and she can cast it because she's going to have herself in play, so you're going to have the legendary creature that just tutored for it. Yeah, and also the art's gorgeous.
That it is. The art on this one is amazing. Yeah. And yeah. No. I don't think it's going to see much play outside of Sisay, but specifically for that deck, it might be quite cool, especially considering that competitive EDH these days has started to be a bit more focused on board states again.
Tymna has that effect on the meta.
Yeah, very much so. Okay, but that's it for Urza's Ruinous Blast. Cool card, might see play in Sisay. Good stuff, great artwork. Thank you, Noah Bradley. Let's move on to some blue cards, because I do like myself some blue cards. First off, we've got a functional reprint of Into the Royal in the name with the name Blink of an Eye. It's 1 in the blue for an instant that has Kicker for another 1 in the blue. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. If this spell was kicked, draw a card.
Yeah, it's just Into the Royal. It's strictly weirder because the art is strictly weirder. It's like this like
Ah,
Minotaur, horn, demon, cyclops, pompadour outline of a ghost full of eyeballs, and he's
it's
holding
so
a
good.
hatchet. Um, Personally, I would run Into the Royal over this because this art kind of weirds me out. But you're
It's
welcome to do whatever you want if you like eyeballs, so I don't
I
know.
really like that art. It kind of reminds me of Bloodborne with all the eye stuff going on and everything. And that game was fantastic.
Never played it. I don't like challenges.
uh, Speaking of challenges, it may be a bit of a challenge to find a proper spot for this next card that we're going to talk about, despite its fairly powerful effect. Merfolk Trickster. It's a Merfolk Wizard, a 2/2 for 2 blue mana. It's got Flash, and when Merfolk Trickster enters the battlefield, you tap target creature an opponent controls. It loses all abilities until end of turn.
I really like this card. I really don't know where it can go because in decks where you would want to be able to play in like ability lock type of hate bear, you're probably not going to have consistent access to double blue because you're looking at decks like Hulkweaver or maybe like a Raza Bears type deck. But this is a really powerful effect. It can shut off a Laboratory Maniac the turn someone tries to go off. It can shut off a Thrasios the turn someone's trying to combo out. It can shut off even just a value Timna draw 3 when they're getting ready to go for that. You can either flash it in before they deal damage so they don't even gain the life with the Timna, or you can flash it in before combat and deny them the option of making efficient trades. I don't know. It's a really cool card that has a lot of versatility, but it is in the awkward spot of being a double blue creature.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't really have anything else to add to that because it's not gonna see play in like the faster decks. You need to be at least on mid range to really make use of a card like that. And a lot of mid range decks these days, with the exception of like some He-Man builds, are quite light on blue mana.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now this next card, however, is quite interesting because it's a commander option for mono blue that lets you go off at instant speed, which is quite nice. I'm talking about Naru Meha, Master Wizard. It's a legendary creature, human wizard, a 3/3 for 2 and 2 blue mana. It has got Flash, just like Merfolk Trickster, and when Narumeha, Master Wizard, enters the battlefield, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Also, other wizards you control get +1/+1.
Now that last line is the most important part of this card. This is a Wizard Lord, which buffs your wizards, so your Snapcaster beats are no longer 2/1s, they're 3/2s. They're Delvers now. Realistically, this card is probably just a better version of that Kaho spice that we brewed up a while back, because that also went infinite with ghostly flicker effects, but it required Paradox Engine and like 8 mana, and it was a mess. This lets you just go off with a 3 mana spell, which is a little more realistic than like
Yeah.
7 mana of permanence across 4 turns across. Yeah. I'm interested to see if this will be good enough. I'm not personally super convinced it will be because Mono Blue has a lot of fantastic options already in
Mhm.
JVP for Storm and Baral for Control. But Maybe this is the A plus B combo commander that Mono Blue was lacking to this point.
With the exception of a certain planeswalker that has the ability to bend time.
That's totally different. That's a good deck. I'm not talking about good decks. I'm
Oh,
talking about viable decks.
okay, that's fair. Yeah,
Besides, Teferi isn't A plus B. It's like A plus B plus mana. Well,
yeah,
I guess
but
that's actually
who
A
doesn't
plus
have
B.
mana these days? Like, let's be real.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but it might present another viable option that's also kind of a mid-range build, which could be interesting. Like, there's a lot of blue decks that are around the area of viable to the upper end of high power with stuff like Azami, Arkham, Daxon, and possibly some others. And I think Narumeha is gonna fit about in that spot as well.
Yeah. When the shell of playables for blue is so deep, it doesn't take much to push something to at least high power viable. So
Yeah,
she will get there, if not maybe farther.
pretty much. Okay, now this next card, we're still on blue, because that's how it is also an interesting one, mainly because this combination of abilities hasn't really been seen before on a card. We're talking about Precognition Field. It's an enchantment for 3 and a blue. You may look at the top card of your library. Just look at, not reveal. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an instant or sorcery card. And then you can pay 3 colorless mana to exile the top card of your library.
This is a really interesting card. So recently they've been changing how they're doing these top deck information cards. If you look at Garrick's Horde compared to Vizier of the Menagerie, you'll see they're changing how they're doing up the effect. It's not a reveal the top card and you can cast it. It's you can look at the top card and you can cast it. So they're trying to control how much information your opponents get off the top deck. Probably it started around Course of Crucifix when there was that like Courser and Thoughtseize debacle. So like Pro Tours would have entire matches where only the opening hands were unknown and then every card after that was public information. But that's kind of off topic. What's interesting about this card is that it combines some of the function of Future Sight with some of the function of actual top deck manipulation. So not only can you cast some of the cards, but if you can't cast it, you have the option of removing it with generic mana. This is something a bit different than Future Sight. So Future Sight, while technically more powerful in that you can also play lands and you can play artifacts and stuff, does have the ability to strand cards on top of your deck that you can't really do anything with at the time. Precognition Field gives you the ability to interact with that slot. So you can actually get rid of those, dead land drops that you don't want, like your 8th land when you needed 3 to combo off, that sort of thing. It lets you control what you're actually interacting with on top of your library.
Yeah.
And I think that might be the slot that this can fill where Future Sight comes up lacking.
Yeah, possibly. Another interesting part about this card is that if you have, say, a deck that plays both Laboratory Maniac and Isochron Scepter, but doesn't have an Isochron Scepter outlet in the command zone, you can have Precognition Field and Lab Maniac on the field with the infinite mana combo to do something like exiling the top cards until you find a draw spell. Then you cast that from the top of Precognition Field, maintain priority, and exile the rest of your deck to win with Laboratory Maniac.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like Necroing, but without having to pay 50 life to do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Those are always fun Doomsday piles. 5 basic islands.
The one of the Doomsday specials for sure. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot more to say about this card. It might see play. I'm definitely going to be interested in seeing what people are going to try to do with it. Now, this next one, however, I think can already be considered a staple in a few decks at least. We're talking about Unwind, an instant for 2 and a blue, counter target non-creature spell, untap up to 3 lands.
It's cool. They revisited the Urza's block free mechanic, which is fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, this is one of the things that I'm pretty sure was like a 9 or a 10 on the storm scale.
Yeah.
And they actually brought it back in a standard legal set. I love it. It's a fantastic homage to one of the most broken blocks in Magic's history.
Yep.
And it's actually possibly playable in, well, so it's probably playable in several less than top end decks, and it's probably playable in some of the best decks. It's a negate that refunds itself, which is already pretty cool. It technically can interact positively with High Tide.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little awkward in that this is a reactive, not a proactive untap spell, which we don't historically run any iterations of. And it is 3 mana, which will ding you off of Adnaz relevantly. But it is a counterspell that refunds itself, doesn't have as high an upfront cost as Rewind, and hits the majority of the cards that people want to cast in the format anyways.
Yeah. And it's kind of nice if you're on like Baral or Grand Arbiter to have this, because it's just randomly mana positive.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
Like if you have, say, a Swan Song and, I don't know, a delay and a normal negate and an unwind in your hand for some reason, you can cast and you've only got 2 mana untapped. You can cast the unwind, it untaps 3 lands, and all of a sudden you've got 3 more counterspells available.
That is a great way to empty your hand.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you don't need 4 counterspells, you can just loot them away with Baral. So life is quite good.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, Baral is definitely an interesting card.
That he is. Okay. Now, Baral costs 1 in the blue, and so does the last blue card we're going to talk about today. Or the last mono blue one, rather. And that's Tetsuko Umezawa, Fugitive. It's a legendary creature, human rogue, a 1/3, that says, creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked.
I think this card's really cool. She's got the rogue thing going for her, which means she can trigger Notorious Throng passively, which is always handy for Edric.
Mm-hmm.
And also everything else you control can't be blocked. Well, except Edric, I guess.
Yeah.
But who really cares when you have like 20 outright unblockable power on board, drawing you 20 cards and letting you take a billion extra turns.
And considering how much Tymna has taken over the meta, having something that literally gives your creatures unblockability is extremely good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say that this is what Edric needed to get back on the map and in the good graces of the meta, because that might be like overhyping this card, but it's a step in the right direction, certainly.
Yeah.
This definitely improves your Tymna matchup.
Which helps quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And we have an Umezawa left alive, which is fun for lore reasons, because there's going to be a fun showdown between Nicole Balas and the clan that he has like a blood-packed murder rage against, which is kind of cute. So
true.
Yeah. You know Lily's working for him now? There was another blue card that showed that, but that card sucked, so.
In Bolus's clutches, I think.
Yeah. That was awesome art, by the way. You got like the like bulldog pug Nicole Bolas and the like Lily with the broken soul in there. It was a really good piece. I liked it a lot.
For sure.
But that's off topic.
Yeah. Now,
Let's move on.
a few days ago, on Wednesday this week, we had a card spoiled that was quite unusual. We're talking about Yargle, Glutton of Urborg, a legendary creature, frog spirit. Costs 4 and a black, and he's a 9/3. That's kind of big.
You can tell the gender from that art.
No.
Just kidding, you can. It says him in the mana or in the flavor text. That's the text I don't read. Yeah, Yargle is obviously overpowered. Like, this is power creep to the extreme. Back in 93, you were paying like 8 mana for a 4/4 where you had to sack all of your lands and concede the game on your upkeep, otherwise he tapped and dealt 9 damage to you. Now we have 9 power for 5 mana. I mean, that's just overpowered. I don't see a reality in which this isn't a tier 0 commander option for competitive EDH mono black Voltron, because it only takes 3 hits to kill someone. Cameron's trying to get me to say something, but I'm not going to do it. I have integrity as a producer, but I have faith that he will somehow make things work in post-production to make it look like I'm not a professional. He's good at this. I have to watch what I say. If I say any combination of those words over the course of this video, he can splice them together. Oh, God.
See,
I'm scared.
I think the important question here is, though, especially considering what you just mentioned about old Magic design and creatures, is this truly Magic as Richard Garfield intended?
Given that he probably designed this card, I would assume so.
Yeah.
Squee the Immortal!
Let's
move on.
Oh yeah, that's a card. Yeah, Squee the Immortal is a jolly old fellow. He's a legendary creature goblin. A 2/1 for 1 and 2 red. And you may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or from exile. Or from your hand, I guess.
Yeah, they don't have to say that on cards, though. Squee is awesome. He is an infinite blocker that can kill Tymna, so you can just recast him from your graveyard and repeatedly block Tymna for value. And I can't see any other reason why you would want to play this card, because that's clearly good enough on the surface.
Yeah,
and I don't know what else you need from Squee. He's got his toy still, and he's not dead. Can you think of anything that, he might be useful for other than blocking Tymna repeatedly?
So there's this fringe deck or like fringe combo archetype that people have been toying around with lately. It involves this card from, I think, Mercadian Masks.
Brainstorm.
No, everyone plays that.
Rishidan Port.
I don't know. Can you help me here? Like, the art looks like somebody buried something or
Oh, the feces pile from the like walking ballista combo from Legacy. Allure. No. Big Red. No, that's not it. It's a green card, right? Sylvan
yes.
Library?
In case you haven't caught on, we're talking about Food Chain.
That's it.
Now, this is cool for Food Chain because it turns into a Food Chain creature tutor, which has some cool applications, and I think I've heard it increases the consistency of like your consultation and tainted pact stuff quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember seeing Shaper talking about that in the Tazri Discord. It's apparently like a significant boost. I think it's like double-digit percentage points to your likelihood to hit a cast from exile creature compared to your likelihood to exile all of your win cons. Yeah, this guy's great. He is a fantastic boon for Tazri, gives it the ability to run 3 Cast from Exile creatures, and theoretically, this might be good enough for Prosh decks, because it gives you the ability to get an on-color entombable Cast from Exile that might be more beneficial to the deck than running Eternal Scourge. So like it gives you some in-deck combo piece if you want that.
Hmm.
That is a bit more functional. Yeah, and like what's the Imperial Recruiter can hit it. So
Oh yeah,
you can pull it out of your deck from other stuff. Like it's in general, I think this is a better card if you want an in 99 option for the Prosh combo,
yeah.
basically.
Also, Goblin Matron hits it.
Oh yeah. They run that because they've got all those bushwhackers and the Simon Special stuff. So yeah, that's very convenient.
Yeah,
Best red card in the set by far, I
I'm
think.
inclined to agree.
Are there other red cards in the set?
Non-mono red, no.
Okay.
Let's see.
Not a single one? They printed an entire set with one red card? Man, I didn't know Richard Garfield hated red that much.
Well, I mean, he did print Lightning Bolt, and then that was kind of it.
Good point.
Okay, let's move on to some green cards. The first one is Adventurous Impulse. It's a sorcery for 1 green mana. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order.
I like this card a lot. I'm not positive. It's one of the cards I'm a little iffier on. I had it in my Merfolk Trickster pile of this is cool and I think it's interesting and I think it might be able to work, but I'm not like positive it's good enough. It's a green cantrip. When you're Xeroxing, or well, let me not use magic terminology that's more obscure. When you're trying to increase your consistency of hitting land drops by replacing them with effects that draw you cards and let you chew through your deck so that you can get to lower land drop amounts, or get to your land drops with lower land count,
Mm-hmm.
but still increase the overall card quality, you want to run cards like Adventurous Impulse, which can hit lands when you are casting them, but basically replace themselves with lands, or with a card that doesn't suck. So a green cantrip being able to hit a land or a creature covers like 60% of your deck, so you're almost certainly going to hit in 3 cards. It
Mm-hmm.
allows you to get to those land drops, which is what you're looking for in cantrip effects, and it also lets you hit the majority of the like powerful cards that you run, which is your hate bears or your combo creatures and things like that. So among green cantrip options that function like Ponder, I think this is one of the more interesting and potentially better options.
Yeah, it seems quite decent.
Obviously, it'll like compete with cards like Miri's Guile, which doesn't actually get you ahead, but it gives you iterative value over time. So I'm not sure it'll come up strong enough, but it is now an option that you have to consider.
Yeah. And I think giving green this type of card selection is a solid move. We'll have to see if it will end up breaking into competitive play.
Yeah, I think I'm more excited for this card in Modern than competitive EDH, but in both formats, I am very much interested.
Fair. Now, we've got another green card today, and that's Song of Freyalise. It's an enchantment. I think the only saga we're going to be talking about today. It's 1 and a green, and as is the case with these sagas, they have a bunch of different effects. The first one always triggers when it enters the battlefield. The others always trigger after your draw step, so kinda before your first main phase on your turns. Which is kind of cool because it's one card that gives you value over multiple turns. Now, this one has 1 and 2 as until your next turn, creatures you control gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. And the third effect is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible until end of turn.
I think this is a really cool card. I mostly just wanted to get a Saga on here so we could like look at them, talk about them, and show this new style of design and style of iterative value engine that's not quite a Planeswalker because there's like a sense of autonomy to it. These are based on, I'm assuming, the original Planeswalker design, which itself was based on the structure, the design from Time Spiral when they were trying to figure it out.
Maybe?
Basically, it ticks through its own abilities, so you don't control that. The first 2 abilities on this are what I'm perceiving as a ritual effect similar to Dramatic Reversal, but for green creature-based decks, which is, green decks. I think it gives you some interesting play, because a lot of the time in bear decks, in my experience anyways, you've got these like 2/2s and these 2/1s and these like 1/3s that aren't necessarily able to profitably attack or realistically need to block. And they just kind of sit there. They don't actually contribute as much. If you could pay 2 mana, make them all tap for mana, and then like dump a Razaketh into play pretty quickly or something similar, I think you might want to be able to take that option. Song of Freyalise gives you the ability to turn all that excess spent mana and stored mana on board and creatures into mana that you can then leverage into either flooding the board with bears, with draw from Timna, for lots of things, to be able to then get a little mini overrun and like slam the Adnaz player. But primarily I'm perceiving this as a 2 mana Dramatic Reversal-esque effect that also incidentally color fixes.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I had initially dismissed this card, but I can kind of see that there's that there might be a spot for it in some decks, like actually being able to hardcast Razaketh on like, I don't know, turn 3, turn 4 seems not too bad.
Yeah, it is cool. It might be a role filler. I don't think it's like fantastic. I don't think it's going to be like the biggest ritual in green since, well, maybe it will be. But it's interesting and it's worth considering and testing. I think I'm probably going to test it myself if I put a bear deck back together again.
Yeah, seems cool. Okay, that was all of the monocolored cards. We are now going to move on to the multicolor cards, many of which are, of course, legendary creatures. Actually, I think each one of them is.
All of them.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Okay.
There's a lot of those this set.
Let's start off with some more mana producers. We've got Grand Warlord Rada. It's a legendary creature elf warrior, a 3/4 for 2, a red and a green, with haste. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control attack, add that much mana in any combination of red and or green. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end.
I always thought Rada was cool. Rada Erdekeld was a neat card that was absolutely atrocious. One of the most useless mana production abilities I've seen in a long time. Clearly, Rada has learned in her time on Dominaria, not only getting like real buff to the point where she could probably, well, she can clearly kill a bear on her own, but learning how to make mana that is useful. I think this card is awesome. It has haste, so it comes down and attacks and is able to net you mana on the turn you cast her, so she can refund herself, similar to how mid-range cards like Garruk Wildspeaker work.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obviously always a lot of discussion about the Blood Pod mid-range slot, because it is a very nebulous concept that Lurker recently wrote a very informative post on. I think this card has potential in that slot, even after having read his article on what does and does not constitute viable for a mid-range slot. This is a powerful mana engine that is fueled by your ability to fuel Tymna draws.
Mm-hmm.
So as you attack multiple players, as you draw multiple cards off of your creature combat step, Rada builds you a mana advantage. So you're getting more mana in the process of getting more cards, which fuels your ability to play those cards. It produces green, which is, in general, the bulk of the mana you're going to need for a lot of those cards you're casting. The red is a little awkward, and it's a little awkward that you have to produce the mana before you know what cards you're drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, like, you can probably just dump it all into green and cast like the bits of red and the bits of black and the bits of white off of your lands and such. But I think that as a combat step mana engine that retains the mana for your second main phase to use with the cards you drew off of your Tymna, Rada is worth testing as a card.
Yeah, that seems good. It's really unfortunate that you can't run her over Tana in your command zone, because that would be
Oh my god.
quite nice.
Rada Tymna would be stupidly good.
Yeah.
Oh my, I'm glad you can't. I'm not glad you can't. I wish you could. That would be awesome. Either way, I think this card is excellent.
Yeah, it seems quite powerful, at least. Now, let's talk about SRAM. Or let's talk about SRAM, but with better colors.
There you go.
Joyra, Weatherlight Captain. A legendary creature, human artificer. A 3/3 for 2, a blue, and a green. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic.
So obviously, there is the direct comparison to SRAM of casting a couple of garbage subtype cards to draw cards, which Joyra can also do, but you can also cast good artifacts with her. And I think that specific point is why Joyra is going to be a really viable competitive EDH commander, because you don't have to cast like 0-drop equipments that do basically nothing to be able to draw cards. You can cast Curse Totem. You can cast Torpor Orb. Well, yeah, you can cast Torpor Orb. You can cast like any powerful artifact hate pieces, like maybe a 2-mana one that shuts off Storm and also messes with Gaia's Cradle that we might talk about. Like, there's so much that you can cast that you want to have in play in either a stacks deck or even just a mid-range control deck, because she's not shut off by any of those effects.
Yeah.
So you can play these mid-range stacks pieces to leverage tempo, and you can net even on them, which is fantastic. And she's a 3/3, which is like a relevant body size. She can block Tymna profitably. She can attack through these little dorks. I'm not going to say in absolute terms, but she is probably the best Izzet commander that we are going to have for the format.
I'm
probably for a long time.
Like, her effect is quite powerful. Of course, Vidalcan Archmage is a comparison that card was never really run, but a good reason for that is because it's not available in the command zone. Having a card advantage engine like Joyra available in your command zone that allows you to cast all of these like artifact hate pieces to draw cards off your mana rocks, that is such a good effect.
Yeah. Now we just need a talisman cycle to be completed, and she'll basically be perfect.
Wizards, please.
And the art's even awesome. I've loved
It
Joyra
is.
as a character since Future Sight. Time Spiral? Whichever set she came out in. And this art is awesome. They did such a great job with like evolving. They did such a great job with evolving all the characters, except for that one unfortunate like this is Kanye West image that is not in line with Teferi's style guide. But I all oh my this set's fantastic. I should stop. Let's move on.
Okay.
Joyra's awesome.
Now, this next one I have a fair amount of personal interest in. We're talking about Muldrotha the Gravetide. It's a legendary creature elemental avatar. A 6/6 for 3 and bug. During each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard.
Wow. You want to see power creep? This is what they did to my boy Carador. They swapped the white out for blue, making him instantly better. And they let you cast every other permanent type too. This card, not even cast, play, so you can hit lands. This card is fantastic. I love it so much. Okay. It's going to be probably playable as a commander. I don't know if it'll be the best, but it'll certainly be viable. There's different things you can do with it. You can play like bug stacks where you can cast the cards you're sacking with smokestack from your graveyard and like multiple. Like you can tick smokestack up because you can hit your lands. You can hit random 0-drop artifacts. You can have smokestack on like 3 and not actually lose anything from it. It probably has potential as a bug food chain commander, replacing cEDH, not because it has implicit food chain combos, like it doesn't enable you like cEDH does, because you don't need that anymore necessarily, but it gives you a lot of recursive mid-range stall power. Food chain getting eggs or getting destroyed, you can just recast. You can recast your stuff from your graveyard to start going off with food chain because you don't technically have Squeed interact with. It opens up a lot of mid-range options for that deck, which is where that deck was trending anyways, because it's implicitly slower than either Tazri or Breakfast Hulk, so there's no real point to play it if it does just worse than other decks.
Speaking of which, Breakfast Hulk, Angel of Glory's Rise is such a bad card, Jesus Christ. And Muldrotha does essentially the same, but in a more flexible way, on a stick that's better than this 5 and 2 white something. Muldrotha will replace Angel of Glory's Rise as the Dread Return target of choice in Breakfast Hulk. Now, the reason why is quite simple. You can either go into a simple finite Laboratory Maniac win, or you can start doing what's essentially Bomberman if you have LED, a Reanimation Enchantment, and Phantasmal Image, because that gives you infinite mana and infinite storm, because you can use the image to copy Muldrotha, send the other one to the graveyard, reanimate it, etc. It's kind of similar to the Sharoom infinite loop.
Yeah, it's exactly that loop, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just with one extra card. That's cool.
And yeah, then you just have Thrasios and you can do Twister loops or basically whatever else your heart desires, because you've got infinite mana and infinite storm, so who's gonna stop you?
And even just as a mid-range value 6/6 that lets you like draw 4 extra cards a turn. Like Angel of Glory's Rise is terrible in your hand, but this card's actually castable.
Yeah.
she's only 6 mana. Like obviously that's a lot for competitive EDH, but when you get stuck in those like you're casting Tymnon turn 5 turn like type games, this is going to be real good.
Mm-hmm. And a bit more additional grind will certainly help the deck. So yeah, I'm a fan. I like this one a lot, and I'll probably get a copy of it ASAP, hopefully even at the pre-release. Now, the last multicolor legendary creature we're going to be talking about today is Ref Compassion, Ship's Mage. He's a legendary creature, human wizard, a 3/3 for 2, a white and a blue. He's got flash, he's got flying, and he's also basically a shimmer mirror. You may cast historic spells as though they had flash.
Yeah, Raph is interesting. He has the ability to be a redundant copy of Shimmermere, which may or may not actually be relevant for Shimmerzer. We already have pretty good consistency at getting to Shimmermere when we Necro for 30. Like, there's Bullshit Victory's done all the hypergeometric calculations. They're great. You can look at them in his primer. And with the addition of Tainted Pact lines and Demonic Consultation lines to that deck, the consistency has improved a lot to the point where he actually, if he had been printed like a year ago, he may have been more likely to be played than he is now. As it stands, he's probably not going to be able to justify a slot just because he has a 4-drop, he has color restrictions, and, various things. Like, our ability to get Shimmermere doesn't positively interact with our ability to get Wrath, because we can't Whir for Wrath, we can't Enlighten Tutor for Wrath, and so on. But it is an option should you need to get him in. It might be one of those budget considerations for taking down Shimmerzer's cost a bit that comes up. But he is on the table now. We do have access to a redundant Shimmermere.
Which is nice. Now, here's a card that's probably going to give Shimmermere and a lot of other Storm-based decks a fair bit of trouble, to say the least. We've got Damping Sphere, a 2-mana artifact that says, if a land is tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces colorless instead, and only 1. Each spell a player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player has cast this turn.
This card is so powerful. This is probably, if I'm remembering timelines correctly, the best hate piece that has been printed since Rest in Peace?
Yeah?
Like, Rest in Peace is the ubiquitous, there is no better graveyard hate card. This, at this point, is probably the ubiquitous, there is no better generic hate piece than this card. It shuts out big mana combos from lands, so you can't Coffers, you can't Cradle, you can't Ancient Tomb, and it shuts out, basically hard shuts out any sort of infinite or non-infinite storm. You can't Dramatic Reversal through this, you can't manually storm off. You probably can't even Doomsday through this. Doomsday runs on such tight margins that you probably are going to need like a late game Doomsday with 15 mana and to not cast more than a handful of spells to get through this. This shuts off it shuts off Teferi. It shuts off everything. This stops every single combo in the format.
Teferi can actually go off through it, but it is a bit awkward, and I should probably mention this because a lot of people have already asked about whether Damping Sphere should go into Teferi.
If you can go off through it, then definitely.
No. See, the thing is, the usual sequence when you go off with Teferi on like a winning turn is that you spend 1 spell to tutor for Chain Veil, then you need to cast Teferi and Chain Veil, and then you maybe even need to protect it with a counterspell, which means we're already up to 4 spells cast in a turn before we can even look at recasting Teferi. So while it is possible, it gets quite awkward.
So you can't burst out a win, which is basically how Teferi wins long mid-range games.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But
yeah, in either case, this card is absurdly powerful.
It's really, really good. Other thing that's worth mentioning about this card is that it does not stop High Tide. You still get 2 mana of each island. But, I mean, what are you gonna do with that mana? Let's be real. Like,
pay for 3 mana for your Ponder?
Perfect.
I don't know. Yeah. This is excellent. Expect to see it. This is probably the most individually impactful single card in the set. Oh yeah, and it's even an uncommon.
Yeah.
Like I'm pretty sure when this was spoiled, everyone was like, "Oh, this is going to be a great rare," but like, no, you're going to see this in draft.
Hmm.
Like incidentally, you'll probably get like past this as like a 7th or 12th pick. Like you'll just accidentally have them.
Yeah.
So
This card
it'll be everywhere.
will be available. Though I do kind of have a feeling that it's still going to be fairly expensive because Modern is going to love this.
Oh yeah.
Oh god,
This is easily going to be the fatal push uncommon of the
yeah,
set.
I'm so going to
It'll
play
be
this in
under
Lantern.
10, but probably barely under 10.
Yeah. Okay. We've got one more card today. This is a bit of an interesting one. I'm really glad that they printed this because it's super cool, even if it's not the most powerful thing in the world. We're talking about Mox Amber, a 0-mana legendary artifact. Yes, a Mox. You can tap it to add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control.
Yeah, we got a new Mox. We haven't had a new Mox in a while. It's very fitting that this is our first new Mox since the last time we saw Karn, and it's on Dominaria. Um, Personally, I still am heartbroken that Vulcan Baga did not do the art. Not to discredit Mr. Belladin, or however you pronounce his name correctly, because this is still very nice art.
Mm-hmm.
It just I need Vulcan Baga art on Moxen at this point.
Moxen needs to be cupped.
Yeah, there's no it's weird to me. But speaking to the power of the card, it is obviously going to be a bit weaker than other Moxen because it implicitly cannot ramp you to your commander because it requires your legendary creature to be in play to produce mana.
Yep.
It is probably going to be most usable in decks that have 2 mana legendary creatures, because at that point you can draw a direct comparison to it being a signet. Either in Baral, it gets you to blue for the cost of 2. In Thrasios, it gets you to any color or it gets you to either Simic for the cost of blue-green, and so on. But while we've considered it in decks like Shimmerzer, the math doesn't work out where it's going to be functional enough to replace an existing piece of artifact ramp.
Oh, okay.
So look to this card in low-cost legendary creature commander decks, or in Sisay, because
oh yeah, Sisay is gonna like it because that's another artifact you can get with her on top of Mox Opal.
Oh, yeah. Easy combo piece.
Oh, that's spicy.
Yeah, it has a lot of function in Sisay.
Okay.
And it's cool. We got a Mox. I am pleased.
So am I. Actually, I think this kind of sums up the set as a whole. I am quite pleased with what I'm seeing. There's a lot of interesting and unique cards. There's so many amazing callbacks to historic events in Magic.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, there's so much packed in. You can see like the Golgothian Silex and Urza's Staff and Urza's Ruinous Blast.
The artwork.
It's fantastic. It is fantastic. And did you see there was a Reddit post like yesterday? They worked in every single set title on Dominaria into the set, either in flavor text, like this includes Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and Revised across flavor text. You have Destiny, you have Saga, you have Exodus, you have Fallen Empires, you have everything between like names and between flavor text. It's just, they packed so much nostalgia into this set. It's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And it's good. It is a great looking set. Limited looks fantastic.
Yep.
I am so excited to be able to play Sealed. I'm going to draft it. It has powerful cards. It has 1 mana Dorks. We've got callbacks to Lightning Bolt and Counterspell with like the original magic of Dominaria. Oh my god, there's so much in this set.
Yeah. It's amazing. Have you seen that new opt art?
I'm so excited for that like release day or promo or whatever it is with the...
Yes. Oh, it's gonna be so nice. Okay, yeah. We are obviously hyped about Dominaria. I hope you all at home are as well. This has been a competitive EDH set review for Dominaria. We're the Laboratory Maniacs. This was cool, and we'll be seeing you soon enough. Stay tuned for more.
See you then.